Even in a space opera setting, an adventure limited to planetside.
A planet opera?
Yes, if you prefer. Can make a role-playing scenario as full of excitement, mysteries, and mood than a scenario where the characters dash across sectors of space.
Oh, is it story time?
Yes.
A story from a role-playing scenario?
Yes. Uragyad'n of the Seven Pillars.
A well-known one?
Well, grognards won't have much difficulties to recognize it. And I hope it shall give more recent game masters some inspiration for their games. Or, even better, the urge to play it. But we'll look at that later.
Killjoy.
And for players, there are spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers. So, if you are not a game master, and if there is any chance that you are going to play it, stop here. This video is not for you. No kidding. Stop. The system consists of 2 inhabited planets. 1. Talak is an industrialized civilization with a first-half 20th century technology and an authoritarian nationalist regime. Talak has invaded the second planet, Vajdi, which is unindustrialized and at a lower technology level. But Vajdi contains deposits of amnesium, a rare mineral. The Talakis now occupies the planet and are mining the amnesium, which is quite weird because at their technology level, it should only have an academic interest.
Talakis don't look like scholars type, it seems?
Oh no. So FDI, Frontiers Development Inc., a consortium from the Imperium, which certainly has the tech level to use amnesium, has tried to strike a deal to buy the amnesium. But the Talakis have refused to grant it.
Strange.
Having been denied, FDI chooses to act like any responsible business would do and take the only reasonable, civilized action possible. Organize a coup with a small band of higher tech level mercenaries to assassinate Vajji's colonial administrator and replace him with a more friendly one.
Fine, business as usual.
Here are the characters. Recruited in a discreet, shady place on a planet a few parsecs away. They are to be part of a small mercenary unit. They can be from different backgrounds and have no reason to know each other beforehand. Note that the mercenaries are absolutely not aware of the reasons behind their mission.
Yeah, okay. A well-organized coup, very professional. Piece of cake.
And the assault is a bloody failure. The mercenaries are caught in a trap, having been obviously expected.
Whoa!
Leaving only a few survivors among them. The player's characters are those few surviving mercenaries, flying into the desert to save their lives. A few NPCs can be added to them, representing some other surviving mercenaries, along with the underground contact of FDI on Vajji. Those NPCs could really become quite handy later on.
Wait, how can we be sure that the player's characters are among the survivors?
Indeed, it is probably better to have the characters playing an auxiliary role in the coup, used as the rear guard or tasked to keep the retreat road open. This way, they are going to be chased and pursued, risking their lives, but they won't be caught in the initial murderous crossfire of the ambush. Because that initial encounter, if played fairly, could easily end in a very early TPK.
Hey, I love TPK.
I'm sure you do. This way, the characters witnesses the debacle. They can also receive additional information from the FDI local contact, whom they should have encountered when arriving on the planet. Now, the fun begins in earnest, and they can flee for their lives with a planetary entire occupation force looking for them.
And the end seems like a very short scenario.
Oh no. All that happened until now is mostly the prologue. The scenario begins only really now, when the fleeing characters exit the verdant coastal region and encounter a band of Naraka, deep desert nomads, whom they should befriend and convince to help them. That is where a local contact in the pay of Frontiers Development Inc., fleeing with them, could be really helpful, guiding them first to the cliffs range leading into the desert and easing the first contact with Narakas. From then on, the only chance of escaping the planet for our band of stranded mercenaries is to gain access to the only long-range communicator on the planet, to be rescued by FDI. And that communicator is in the Star Palace, the headquarters of the occupying Talak forces.
And how can they do that?
By taking part, or even better, as the scenario suggests, by organizing and leading a rebellion against the Talakais as a way to gain access to it.
I see. And that rebellion is going to be the main part of the story.
Only the most visible part, because the characters are also confronted with mysteries to solve. And having intelligent and curious players should lead them to investigate.
What can they discover?
Well, remember that they know nothing about the real reason of their presence here. They should first learn about the existence of the Omnesium, and later, about what is the final destination of this mineral, which a mid-20th century level civilization like the Talakais should have no use for. And also, along the way, discover how the Talakais were informed of their presence and were able to set up the ambush that doomed their attempted coup. Finally, they could discover what is the truth behind the rumors of black-clad off-worlders rumored to visit the governor's palace at night.
It looks like this is a mostly military sci-fi scenario, no?
It is not. Not at all.
How so?
Of course, the characters are from a military background, and to be rescued, they should engineer a victorious military rebellion. So, there is obviously going to be a fights, from low-level skirmishes and ambushes, sabotages and raids, up to full-scale revolution and military assault. But that military victory won't simply be the result of battles. It shall be the consequence of a mix of covert operations, infiltrations, intelligence gathering, contacts role-playing, along with treasons, arrestations, and executions, clock and dagger maneuvers, and yes, finally, epic fights. The social skills of the characters are probably going to be more critical to their success than their knowledge of advanced weaponry and warfare. Though this knowledge is going to be their most visible asset and serve them well as a way to play a crucial role in the rebellion, it is very important for the scenario to develop the relationships between the desert dwellers and the characters. The players should feel the bond between themselves and the peoples through shared hardships, risks, and purpose. If you add to that the mysteries that the characters should unravel, you'll understand that the military action is finally more of a backdrop than the real scenario. Given all the moving parts in the scenario and the gazillion of opportunities for the actions of the characters, Uragyad'n is probably better suited as a standalone, one-shot mini-campaign, rather than as a part in an ongoing campaign. If characters are killed during the game, they can be replaced by escaped mercenaries, NPCs, if some were added in the escape part at the beginning of the scenario, or even mercenaries, prisoners of the Talakis, to be freed during the campaign by the characters as an added side mission.
Yes, that should make an interesting subplot. If the characters learn that they are not the only survivors. I like the idea.
Yes, and it gives some nasty leverage for the Talakis to use against the rebellion. And that's even a way for the characters to learn some things about the Sky Palace or the mysterious strangers. And finally, replacements characters could be local coastal dwellers or even Naraka tribesmen. But surely not at the beginning, when the fun for the players resides in the discovery of the Naraka civilization. One of the most interesting moments of the adventure, from a role-playing point of view, is the very, very anticlimactic epilogue, which should be played to the hilt. And it is where the shadow of Lawrence of Arabia, mentioned in the scenario, should loom very large indeed.
Why? The characters should be victorious, ain't they?
Sure. But with the Resistance victorious, and the arrival of the FDI mission that the characters have called from the communication center in the Sky Palace, the players shift now from romantic revolutionary rebels to just, well, low-level, successful operatives who saved a botched mission.
Yes, I see. Thanks for it, and here is a big credits cash bonus.
Exactly. Sykes and Pico, the top executives from the Frontiers Development Inc. Corporation, are going to land soon after the victory to take matters into their own hands. The characters will be sidelined and will have absolutely no voice about how FDI shall handle their new industrial operation. Hint, it's probably going to be not very different from the previous experience.
Yes, top executives are the lowest form of life in the universe.
Well, that is probably a little exaggeration, but maximizing profit is always to the detriment of someone.
Anyway, I can see that the characters have failed the Dwellers bigly.
And that's where the dedication at the end of the scenario becomes quite ironic, if you know Lawrence's biography.
But still, yes to you, Lawrence. Okay, and now, what is the source of your story?
In 1982, published a booklet for this scenario to be used with the Traveler role-playing rules. It was written by the legendary Keith brothers and was described by critics as a kind of Lawrence of Arabia meets Dune sort of thing. Sort of. Whilst it was positively reviewed, I don't think that it was widely played. Probably because it was not too easy to include it in an ongoing campaign. The original booklet can be found on eBay, but it is available in PDF on drive-thru. If you play Classic Traveler, any edition, or Cepheus, any of its flavors, stats can probably be taken directly from the original scenario, with almost no change.
And if you play any other sci-fi role-playing game, you can just make easily the stats for the different NPCs yourself.
Of course, stories in role-playing scenarios are not really that much linked to rules. It is easy port them, and that's why game masters are game masters, not board game umpires.
Rules don't matter much.
Anyway, this is a scenario, or rather a short campaign, that can produce interesting role-playing situations, intriguing mysteries, and tense adventuring moments. With little work, but and some imagination required from the Game Master. It is a self-contained campaign that really plays itself once the characters get the ball rolling. Just don't rush through it. Let the setting set in. Let relations with NPCs develop, and don't shy away from Civil War nastiness. For inspiration, you can, of course, reread The 7 Pillars of Wisdom from T.E. Lawrence, and maybe Dune, though the Nraka are certainly not frenemies.
Or, rather, read them anyway, because they are great books.
By the way, if you already knew this scenario, you certainly noticed that I have indeed slightly modified its contents and looks for my own use.
Because that is what being a game master is about.
If you are interested, you can download the assets that I used in this video.
Link in the description.